For over 70 years, the search for the Titanic was defined by increasingly desperate and bizarre tactics. Explorers pitched attaching electromagnets to submarines, and salvage companies set off underwater dynamite to create sudden sonar echoes, and one Texas oil tycoon even brought his pet monkey to point at maps to guess the location. The North Atlantic Ocean aggressively guards its floor. At depths exceeding 2 miles, the water pressure is crushing, and the surface weather is notoriously violent. Every single expedition launched into this hostile environment returned empty-handed. By 1980, the string of expensive, high-profile failures exhausted the patience of investors. Oceanographers and deep-sea explorers began to accept a grim consensus. Locating the wreck was a logistical impossibility. The sheer mythology of the Titanic blinded searchers to a basic physical reality. They were hunting for a ghost ship in complete darkness, using technology that simply wasn't capable of seeing it. In 1982, an oceanographer named Robert Ballard approached the U.S. Navy with a radical pitch. He wanted funding for Argo, a revolutionary deep-sea robotic camera system that could be piloted from the surface, specifically to find the Titanic. The Navy agreed to fund the technology, but they issued a classified counteroffer. Ballard had to use Argo to locate the wreckage of 2 missing nuclear submarines, the USS Thresher and the USS Scorpion. These submarines had disappeared in the North Atlantic years earlier. At the height of the Cold War, the military urgently needed physical photographic evidence of the wrecks to confirm that the Soviet Union had not shot them down. Ballard's contract came with a very specific condition. He was only authorized to look for the Titanic using whatever time and budget he had left over after completing the Navy's top-secret mission. Ballard successfully mapped both submarine wrecks, but the effort consumed almost his entire schedule. When the military objectives were finally complete, he had exactly 12 days left to locate the Titanic before his funding vanished. The public watched what they thought was a purely scientific expedition. In reality, the most famous archaeological discovery of the 20th century only happened because it served as a convenient cover story for a classified military operation. Comparing 2 search methods, looking for a single intact hull is like finding a needle in a haystack. But when ships sink, ocean currents scatter their pieces over a wide area. Ballard realized that searching for this miles-long debris cone offered a much higher probability of success. The strategy worked. In the early hours of September 1, 1985, the ARPO's cameras transmitted an image of a human-made object sitting on the ocean floor. It was one of the Titanic's massive boilers. Following the debris trail led the team to the main wreckage at a depth of 12,400 feet. The ship, widely believed to be indestructible, was sitting completely split in 2, resting over 2,000 feet apart. Locating the wreckage provided critical historical closure. More importantly, it preserved a pristine 73-year-old crime scene that directly contradicted the official narrative of how the ship went down. The physical evidence raised an immediate engineering question. The collision with the iceberg lasted barely 10 seconds and was described by survivors as a gentle shudder. How did a glancing blow sink a heavily armored vessel? This cross-section shows the ship's internal watertight compartments. To make the first-class dining saloons and staircases more spacious, the designers intentionally lowered the height of these dividing walls, known as bulkheads. As water filled one compartment, it easily spilled over the lowered wall into the next, creating a cascading flood. The flooding was accelerated by a severe material compromise in the bow. Hydraulic machines used to drive high-quality steel rivets into the ship's metal plates were too large to fit into the curved sections of the hull. Consequently, the builders secured those specific plates by hand, using weaker wrought iron rivets. To save money, the shipyard purchased No. 3 grade iron, which contained high levels of an impurity known as slag. Slag is a glass-like byproduct of the smelting process that gets trapped inside the metal, creating microscopic fault lines that make the iron highly brittle. When the Titanic struck the iceberg, the ice did not slice a massive gash through the steel plates. Instead, the immense pressure of the impact caused the brittle, slag-filled heads of those wrought iron rivets to cleanly pop off. Without the rivets holding them together, the steel plates simply unzipped along the seams. This opened narrow slits along the side of the ship, allowing tons of seawater to bypass the exterior defenses and rush inward toward those deeply lowered bulkheads. The destruction of the Titanic was the direct result of corporate cost-cutting and compromised metallurgy, all carefully hidden beneath a facade of extreme luxury. Even with the hull unzipped and the lower decks rapidly flooding, the deaths of 1,500 people were entirely preventable. Another vessel, the SS Californian, was stopped in the ice just a few miles away. It was close enough that passengers on the Titanic's deck could see its lights. But the Californian's radio operator had gone to sleep after the Titanic's crew rudely told him to stop interrupting their passenger messages with ice warnings. The Californian's crew actually saw the distress rockets firing into the night sky. Their captain, Stanley Lord, was informed, but he dismissed the warning, assuming the wealthy passengers on the luxury liner were simply throwing a fireworks crowd. This chart visualizes the stark mathematics of the disaster. The Titanic carried roughly 2,200 passengers, but its 16 lifeboats only had a maximum capacity of 1,200. The ship's designers had actively reduced the number of lifeboats because they thought the extra boats cluttered the deck and blocked the ocean view. Furthermore, the captain canceled a scheduled safety drill earlier that very day. By the time the rescue ship RMS Carpathia arrived in the early morning hours, there was nothing left to do but retrieve the survivors. They could only save the small fraction of people fortunate enough to secure a seat in those limited boats. The shipping company, the crew, and the passengers operated under a shared, unquestioned belief that the vessel was unsinkable. That absolute certainty created a culture of arrogance that sealed the fate of the people left freezing in the water. Today, the wreckage is rapidly deteriorating. A unique strain of deep-sea bacteria is actively consuming the iron hull, forming massive rust formations that eat away at the remaining metal framework. The decay is accelerating. Marine biologists and salvage experts estimate that by the year 2030, the main physical structure of the Titanic will completely collapse and dissolve into the ocean floor. The physical ship will soon vanish forever. But the forensic evidence scattered across the seabed serves as a permanent, chilling warning. No amount of wealth, luxury, or advanced engineering can ever provide an escape from the consequences of human hubris.